everybody. This is our second public meeting. I'm Rita Hinkle. I'm Chair of the Board of Trustees. And tonight we have Chris and Brandon from A&E, our architects, and they're going to do a little presentation on where we are now.
Thanks, Rita. Well, thanks for taking the time out of this beautiful evening to join us tonight. I think we kind of realize after setting dates that, you know, maybe around the 4th of July weekend's not the best weekend to be doing this, but how it happens is how it happened. But so tonight, the agenda we've got is kind of what we've been up to. We're going to talk through kind of what we've been up to since the last meeting, which was in the middle of April. We're going to talk about the schedule, kind of show everybody where we are in the process. We're going to review what we heard at the last meeting, and I do recognize some faces, but I'm not sure if all of you attended the last meeting, but we'll review what we heard, and then we'll kind of talk through where the floor plans are. They're pretty well developed. They're at about a 30% level. And then we're going to look at the site plan, look at some concepts that we've put together for the site on how the site's starting to arrange, and then we'll talk about next steps moving forward. So what we've been up to, at least since April, we've had that last public meeting that we engaged everybody to hear what people wanted to see in the library and what type of spaces we could provide, what type of community outreach, environment, education, activities for kids. So, you know, we got a really good cross-section of ideas of what could be possible. The other thing that we were actively doing at that time in April was finalizing the program, not only with the library, but also the partner groups with MCAT, Families First, and Spectrum. Part of the challenge, you know, with this project is understanding what all the partners' needs are, which generates kind of a square footage of the building. And once the bond passed, you know, the building economy has changed and it's rapidly changing. So we're trying to manage what these needs are, and it relates to a square footage, and that square footage is going to relate to a cost. So we're kind of balancing this budget along the way. So we've been kind of finalizing that program with the partners. We were also actively involved in selecting a contractor. We went out and sought 5 qualified contractors. We then performed interviews and landed with Dick Anderson, and that group was actually part of the pre-bond work with us as well to establish some of the bond costs. We've been currently working and are in the middle of a rezoning application, and that kind of falls in line with closing on the property. I believe we closed on June 1st. So the property is now in possession. I don't know if you've been by it or just noticed tonight, but there's a fence around the entire block. All the properties in the block have been vacated. We've met with the contractor, a salvaging group or a dismantling group to walk through and start to understand what can be salvaged out of these buildings and possibly used in the library or possibly, you know, returned and put out into the public for reuse. So that effort's been underway. The other thing we've been involved in is connecting with the city, which involves, you know, Parks and Recs and Missoula Bikes, the Parking Commission. So we've been meeting with them on a fairly consistent basis to get this project out in front to make sure that when this building goes out to review that we're meeting the bicycle needs, the parking, you know, desires and wishes, making sure that all the partners in the community have been actively involved with helping to steer where this building is going and what's happening. So here's kind of a quick snapshot of the schedule. The April 11th was kind of towards the end of our programming phase with the partners. That's the green bars. The blue bars is what we've been actively involved in currently with the partners and with our team MSR out of Minneapolis. And I wouldn't say we're behind, but we're probably got a couple more weeks, 3 more weeks of the schematic design phase. So this bar is drifting a little bit, but we're pretty confident that we can pick that back up. So we're at the June 29th collaboration meeting, and tonight we're going to be kind of sharing with you the plans of where they are today and how they relate to what we've heard. And from this point moving forward, The August 16th meeting will be the application piece, and that's probably going to be the more exciting part of seeing how this process works. You know, we're going to be hearing from you today on you know, how we've heard from you and how they apply to the plans, but you know, what this building is going to look like is what's going to be seen in August, and we'll be getting feedback and input from you all. So, Brandon, I mean, I don't know if some of you recognize this, but these are some of the lists that we generated from you. We actually put check marks next to the items that we know we've got covered in the building. I think the bold check marks are a for sure. I think some of the lighter check marks are, we're working on them and we're working towards them. Some of them may be a reach, but we're still looking at them. But I think you can see that from everything that we heard, we're definitely looking to apply. You want us to kind of read through what some of the highlights were? So as far as events on the interior, we heard that a catering kitchen was desired. We're definitely going to meet that need. Large meeting space, up to 300 people. That's done. Indoor, outdoor opportunities. We do still have a deck up on the 4th floor that's planned. Music and performance. With MCAT being a partner, that space is accounted for. Whether it's a soundproof space or actually in a studio, we could actually accomplish that. Gallery space for First Fridays or special events. That's going to happen probably up on 4th floor. We did skip over sleepovers. I'm not sure how we would accommodate that, but it was a good idea. Weddings, film festivals, I think those are very doable. The Lego Club, of course, I think in the maker space. Business center, I think that's kind of implied throughout the entire building, so I'm sure we can accommodate those needs as well. Study and tutorial rooms, quiet space, community reading rooms, local and nonprofit resources. Those are all going to be easily accommodated in this new space. As far as hands-on learning, you know, so this is a lot of messy stuff, flexible. We'll accommodate that in the not only the live lab but also the maker space. Let's see, layout space, attract the community living room. I mean, that's the kind of the whole market space that we've got planned here on the main floor. Trying to read this. So the tactile side, the accessibility, access to makerspace and software, cafe.
Your voice is trailing off. I don't know if that microphone is recording or you're supposed to be.
It's just
amplifying.
Recording.
Oh, it's just recording?
Yeah.
Okay, but please speak up a little bit.
Okay. Group exercise, space for respite. We're pretty sure we're covering all that. Exterior activities, the Zen Garden. I mean, we may be able to accommodate that. I think we're planning for an outdoor space outside. Outdoor stage, better parking, cafe, of course, indoor and outdoor experience. Sand and water table, you know, whether that lives outside or inside. I know the partners are talking pretty actively about a water exhibit. Drive-up window, that's definitely going to be part of our discussion. So you can see that a lot of these check marks, you know, we're going to get these accommodated in these plans. But I'm going to have Brandon kind of step in and kind of lead us into the discussion of where the plans are, and this kind of sets the stage of how we're actually seeing how the building starts to reflect Missoula's community and the surrounding areas. So we're trying to bring a story and understand kind of how these floors can relate to Missoula as you travel up through the 4 floors of the building. I think it's pretty fun.
Hi. So this is a diagram of the building sectionally. So if you could imagine this lower bar, this community bar being the first floor of the library. The second bar being what we're calling the Bitterroot level, and this third level, fog, fourth level view. So this is a representation, a very simple representation of the mountain valleys that surround us. And so we've really deliberately tried to organize the building. And if you've all been following the design, this is exactly what you've seen before, where the first floor is this very open, probably the loudest floor being the first floor. And as you travel up through the building, it would become more quiet. So the first floor is an open, active public space, MCAT, the front entry, of course, a spectrum portion. Second floor would be children, the children's floor, so a very sort of active floor. The third floor would be the adult floor, fiction, nonfiction, periodicals, Montana room. And the fourth floor is still our meeting space and outdoor deck views downtown into the mountains. So, you know, we're often trying to weave how we build, like Chris said, build this story, build this narrative of how we can tie this design specifically to Missoula in place. And I think that's so important when we as the architects are trying to design this building that we that we voted on as a community and we publicly funded. So these are very important aspects of how we can make a rich building that people will love for generations. So this is a little bit more detail talking about, you know, we were looking at the surrounding rocks, the sediment rock, the valley, and this first floor being the community floor, being the kind of ground, the base of the building. Working our way up to the children's floor, you know, we're thinking, you know, of course, it being the children's floor, color is really important, and what better way to kind of represent that possibly in the bitterroot flower. Working our way up to the adult floor, and the third floor would be the quiet adult study, fiction, nonfiction, periodicals, the quote-unquote typical library space of the building. And you would get, you know, maybe some reference to mosses, grasses, some quieter sort of sense of place. And then the fourth floor, you know, it's really all about the views. I think that was something that people really latched onto from even a year and a half ago, talking about this design, that we have the event space and the meeting rooms, and you can get a view, a public view. Anyone can walk into this building and get a view of this amazing place we live in. And so I think the fourth floor is going to be a really spectacular space. So I'm going to try to talk very slow because I know it's kind of difficult to follow. We've been really close to these plans for about many months. So we have printouts of the plan, so afterwards we can dive deeper and answer any questions you may have with the current thinking. But I'll try to hit the highlights. And probably some of you already know, generally speaking, where these spaces lie, but I'll just repeat myself, just kind of dive in. So the front of the building, do we have the pointer? Is it here? Can everyone see that? I'll kind of stand back. So this would be Main Street. This would be Front Street. North is up. Okay, so the current library, we're standing over here somewhere, or we're sitting here. Adams, Jefferson. So the front door of the building would be more or less centered on the north elevation, the north facade. So you would, coming from downtown, you would walk. There'd be possibly a boulevard of trees and this nice entry plaza with nice covered entering the building here. So as you enter the building, you'd be greeted with this, we're calling it a monumental stair. And this monumental stair has always been in the design. It's something that's an important icon of the building. We're currently studying how that is designed and how that really looks and feels, but there will be a stair in the center of the building that is nice to walk up and become kind of a very kind of orienting piece in the building. The elevators are tucked on the back side of the stair, very centrally located. This is an egress stair. And so when you enter the building, you know, most of the open space is right up front, where you'd have a retail space here. This is the maker space, the marketplace, grab-and-go books, technology. This is a kind of a fun idea that's popped up recently, where it would be possibly soft seating, maybe hard seating, but it would be a kind of a layered, tiered piece of furniture that we would purchase, where young school children could could climb on and sit on and wait for possibly going through the building. That piece of program was living up here, but we were worried about the space adjacencies and kind of being too congested at the front door of the building, so we've kind of moved it back. Teen space in the corner. You'll get great views out the south end of the building, more or less a lot of glass here, lots of transparency. The MCAT space, of course, has always been in the back here, so that'd be a kind of a secluded space. All the staff areas back here, restrooms. The really important part of the first floor and second floor is this climbing structure that we're integrating into the building. And this is a Spectrum exhibit that is kind of unique to Spectrum's program. Of course, there's a lot of parallels with the Children's Museum and Spectrum, but here is a 2-story structure that's fully encaged or fenced, netted for the small ones, but it would go from first floor to second floor. So it being tucked away on the back side and have great transparency and views from the west side here. This is a exterior plaza seating, cafe seating on the west facade. So a part of the cafe's program, that it would be possibly open before the library would open, so folks could come into this space and purchase some coffee and hang out before the library would open itself. So, you know, again, lots of activity, lots of openness on the first floor. This is a slide. You can kind of get a better sense of the furniture on this plan without the colors and the kind of openness and transparency we're thinking of. And again, we have the plans printed out, so after this we can, it's a little bit hard to read up there, but. So moving up to the second floor, of course you have the stair as it progresses through the building with the elevators and restrooms centralized to the building. And then all these kind of organic shapes you see scattered through the building are all the children's exhibits and play structures and sand tables, and right now they're sort of placeholders. We haven't exactly designed them yet, but as you can see, the books, the activity, it's all intermingled, and so the children can experience those different experiences as they travel through the floor plan. On the corner here we have the program room, a very active space, great views that way. This is an exciting outdoor balcony that would be adjacent to the party room, so that you'd have currently, if you were to ever attend a children's museum birthday party for young children, in that space, you know that those can get pretty rowdy, and so I imagine folks can kind of spill out into the outdoor balcony and enjoy that as well. So Spectrum, Discovery Bench, kind of up on the corner, but as you can see, very open, lots of books. The children's library scattered throughout, and Families First, I forgot that. So this is all office space, counseling rooms, etc. for Families First, and this is staff space as well.
Talk about where the climbing structure is.
Oh yeah, thank you. So the climbing structure would be right here. So it's a 2-story thing as it travels through the building. Yeah. So I should say the second floor is the largest floor plate, so it's the largest piece of program we have to accommodate. The third floor, the adult floor, where most of the books are. As you come up the space here, you see, of course, the stacks throughout. Elevators, restrooms, staff space, meeting rooms, small reservable meeting rooms. The Montana room in the corner, we're thinking the Montana room in the northwest corner would be a pretty fantastic place for that piece, where we could, you know, get great views downtown, and this is the secure storage area for the Montana room. And then we're hoping to get, if budget allows, we're hoping to get an outdoor space on the third floor. That may be a question mark whether we can afford to do that or not, but nevertheless we want to provide some space on the third floor where you can get outside. What did I miss? Going up. The periodical's up in the corner. Trying to read that. The demo kitchen, number 24 here. Thanks, Chris. That's kind of an interesting piece of program where you would learn how to cook and so forth. So that's a pretty nice little area that we're we're incorporating as well. As you can see, let's see the colors here. So this number 4, that would be the reference section here in that color. Fiction would be number 8, which would be here. 2 would be periodicals up in this corner. Montana Room, I said. Montana Secure in number 17. Number 11, Catalog. What am I missing? Oh yeah, an interesting point that came through last public meeting. I don't know if we ever wrote it down, but it was something that was really interesting. Someone had a comment about the elk on jumbo in the winter, and which would be a pretty amazing thing to accommodate in the library. And now that it's a 4-story, 3-story building, you'll definitely get views across MCAT's parking or MCT's parking lot to get a view of jumbo. And so maybe on the 3rd floor in this corner, we can develop something that you get those views of jumbo in the wintertime, at least when they're there. 4th floor. This is how the meeting room is shaking out, where it's western facing on the west end of the 4th floor. We've tucked in the sides of the 4th floor very deliberately to lower the scale and mass of the building, so that if you can imagine this wall being here, that wall, as you're standing as a pedestrian down here, is much taller than if you were to bump it in 12 feet as we've done. So we're constantly thinking how this building is massed and shaped in an abutting residential neighborhood, I should say. So the meeting room is divisible by 3. I think it accommodates 300 people. There's this large pre-function area. It's a fancy word for breakout space, or a space where you go where you're not in here. So if you imagine 300 people being in here right now, they spill out and they have a space to stand. This is an area that we imagine the art could live, and it could be a very usable space, of course, even when there's no activity in this room. This, of course, is a public space. You can come up there, and there might be flexible seating in this area and so forth.
When you say it's divisible by 3, could you actually have 3 different events
Yes.
going on at the same time?
Absolutely.
Acoustically?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the dividable, the wall partitions that are used in those circumstances, they're very sophisticated and they're very acoustically rated. So they're not cheap, but you can do it. And so that was an important part of the programming effort, and part of the library's program is to provide that large space that then could be broken down. It's much like any other convention center you've been to. So with the stair, elevators, and staff spaces. And then hopefully we get some green space on the roof. We'll see. Let's see.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Back to the 3rd floor, you were talking about looking over there at Mount Jumbo and Elk and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. You guys need to go over to the new Missoula College building.
We heard about that.
Out there in the corner, you can look out to Stanley and Iris in the nest, and
The
that's the
Osprey.
command center for all those cameras for that. So
Mhm.
like that in that corner, and or a permanent telescope of some sort.
Yep.
You know.
That's right in line with what we're maybe thinking. Yeah.
But that's awesome over there. If you ever get a chance when the Missoula College opens to go up there.
Yeah. Yeah, we're always looking for those really great ideas that the community has. I mean, this is going to be our library. This is what we this is for all of us. So, great point. Parking level, the lower level. Very important to the library, of course, is getting as much parking as we can. We have, as Chris said, we have a fixed budget. We have a $35 million budget, and that's it. And so we have to accommodate a lot in this building. And so currently we have 68 total parking spaces. That's not including parking, street parking around, but 68 parking spaces within library property. The very deliberately laid out, where the entrance would be on the less active, busy street. It would be tucked away a little bit. You know, these type of parking lots aren't very high traffic, although there will be, of course, cars moving in and out. We chose for one curb cut into the property to maximize the green space around the site. And then with the 68 spaces, there would be the bike vending station with the bike storage. We'd get about 30 bikes here, 24 bikes there. One of the big things that we're thinking with the lower level is that we want, even though it's a parking level, and it's going to feel more or less like a parking garage. It's going to be, of course, under a building, but we're going to light it well. It's going to be, hopefully, feel very secure and safe. But we want the stair and elevator as it comes down to the building or to the lower level here, it'd be as transparent, as open as possible. So it would be well lit. There'd be a lot of glass. It would feel like when you step here into this vestibule, when you're in here, you're in the library. It's not like you're traveling through a dark, dank space to then get to the library. The library really starts here. And so we feel that that's a pretty important part, because this is going to be a main entrance. A lot of people are going to be going through that door when they come and park at the library. So to us, this is as important as the front door, if you will. And then a lot of support spaces that flank the sides. Architects, we like to look at geography and landscape and colors and get into that sort of thing. So this is just a slide representing, we live in this beautiful place. There's lots of inspiration how we can bring color and the greenery and all of that sort of really great stuff into the design. So we're definitely looking at how those colors can inform the design. This is an idea that we've internally talked a lot about, where we live in this great valley where the rivers have carved and shaped and shifted the landscape, and how can that inform a landscape design or a design within the architecture. And so, drawing from these organic shapes, there's possibly a way where we can learn from that and design that specifically into the landscape. So the site, and we talked a little bit about this in the parking level, but this is a drawing by our landscape architect that is pretty fun to look at. It shows that the site is very, it's not all parking, it's not all building. There's a lot of landscape around it. So we're very conscious of how the building is abutting different sides. As you currently know, this is where we're standing right now. This is the library. So that's a very different interface in how this building reacts to its neighbors. This, of course, there's single-family homes right here, and so this edge, this threshold, is much different than the other side, and so forth. These are some, two-story brick apartment buildings, and there's a, of course, MCT across the street. So the landscape design, I think, really responds to that. And we talked about before on this slide, previously, this kind of meandering, curvilinear, layered, tiered idea, and possibly there could be some reference to the rivers there. We've also talked actively about maybe less tiered design and more kind of lawn space where there could be actually library program space on this area. So if you can imagine boulders kind of strung about, and you could have a third grade class out there, or story time, or what have you, on this space. We need the parking, we need the building. We're trying to figure out ways how to incorporate outdoor program space as well. Very deliberate attempt to gracefully landscape this southern edge, being that there's single-family homes to the south there. So again, you pull into the site, you can go either way. We have enough room to accommodate two-way traffic through the lanes. We may opt for arrows pointing you in maybe this way, but I think we're covered width-wise to get either scenario. This will be the book drop. This is how this is kind of shaping up, where there'd be a landscaped island. You would be coming up Jefferson, pulling this way. If you were the driver, you'd want to drop off the book on the driver's side, of course. So the book drop would be about right there. This is kind of the more utilitarian side of the building, with the book drop, and the trash and the loading dock would be on that side. This would be, we're working through various landscaped ideas, but there'd be some form of trees on the north side with greenery, and this corner being we feel the most important corner civically to the design. This, I think, if you're walking to the library, this is where you're coming from, this corner from downtown, right? And the entry being here. So this where we would be most of the hardscape in the design. This is the plaza, the cafe seating on the west elevation with the cafe. This would be a retaining wall. So if you can imagine, the site is sloping to the south here, and this would be level. So you're higher here than there, so there'd be a slight retaining wall. So we're very conscious about designing some organic buffer to that transition right there.
And the other thing I'll just quickly add is recognizing that Kiwanis is right across the street from this lower corner. I think that pedestrian path, up the west side of the building is going to be critical. I think the library could really benefit, and the community, from the connection from the river through Kiwanis to the library and that cafe. So I think that could be a really successful circulation path to the library.
Yeah. Does everyone know where that is? It's right about here. So this is the connection Chris is talking about.
There's a question.
Oh, yeah.
Just, I don't know off the top of my head, but are those existing mature trees, or are those?
Right now, these plans show the existing trees, but we've already heard from the city arborist or the forester that 90% of the trees on that site or block are at the end of their existence. But we've talked pretty closely yesterday with our landscape architect about what that north side is going to look like. We still see total value in providing trees, whether it's a tighter repetition or smaller ornamental trees, and then how are they going to perform up against a building that's 65 feet tall. So I think looking at creative ways to buffer between the street edge, creating a feeling of safety and closeness and scale between the building and the street for humans. So I think repetition of grasses, soft greenery, and ornamental trees is probably what would happen on the north. The south side, the city is very responsive to maintaining a screen between, residential across to the south, parking lot, and the library. So whether that's, probably replacing a boulevard tree scenario along the south side, similar to what's there now, but letting those trees mature into larger trees.
Yeah, Chris is right. These canopies of these existing trees right here are actually into the building. So for us to build to the property line, which we want to do, you would have to mow off half the tree, and then there's construction tolerances as well that we have to consider, and saving a particular tree is tens of thousands of dollars just in doing that. So,
Well, the other thing I think we recognize is that this block is going to become a CBD block by the end of this process, so it'll be a central business district. And where these sidewalks currently live is really set up for a residential district, because that's used to be what in there. So those sidewalks really want to be out on the street edge where people are going to park and actively move from their car into the building. So we're trying to balance, I think the north side probably being more that urban edge, as well as the west where buses could probably drop off children, and respond a little more to the residential aspects by possibly moving the sidewalk to the street edge, but maintaining a boulevard greenscape along the south. And then the east side, probably leaving the sidewalk where it is, so it's much more like a residential setup than a CBD setup.
Getting back to the first floor, what was the thinking process in doing away with the computer lab and with the computer lab? And how were you, I know you said you were going to replace it by having laptops on the third floor. Would it just be the third floor that the laptops would be on?
maybe Honora can clear this up, but I think they're going to be there'll be a certain amount on the first floor that are available, and then a certain amount on the third.
We'll have a laptop vending machine on the first floor and one on the third floor, so that people that are going to the second floor can get a laptop first and second floor, and then third and fourth floor can get them up on the third floor if they choose. The reason that we're doing away with stationary computers is it's just not the way that the technology is moving, and so we'll be moving to laptops. They're easy to check out with your library card. We'll have between 70 and 100, depending on, we need to figure out just about what we're finding now is more people are bringing their own computers in and wanting help with them rather than borrowing a computer. So we need to find that sweet spot of how many to buy. We don't want to buy too many, but we can always add more when we need them. And what we've found in the computer lab is you put people together who maybe have vulnerable personalities, and when they're that tightly packed into a room, it makes sometimes not very comfortable situations. So if people can, as you can see, there's lots of space in this library to sit in lots of different areas with tables or all kinds of different types of furniture. So you can go and pick the spot that you want to sit in. There'll be plugins and all of the technology that people need to have.
And there'll be printers?
There will be. And we will have a couple stationary sets of computers. One we'll have a business center, which will have some computers in it that have high-end kind of software on it that you might want to use once or twice a year, or a small business might want to use it, say for making graphic art kind of things or something for their business, or you might want to print a bunch of pictures that you have or something like that. We'll have computers that will do that people would not want to sit at for long lengths of time and work. And those will be stationary, regular computers that you're used to seeing now. But for the average person, laptops seem to be working better.
And the computer classes that are given?
We will still have computer classes, and we have plenty of meeting rooms to be able to have those classes.
And there's actually a classroom still on the first floor that can accommodate about 20 people.
And we'll use laptops for those computer classes. We're finding that, as the price of computers goes down, many more people are owning their own, but they need extensive help with using them. They buy them and then they don't know what to do with them, so they bring those to the library and have library staff help figure out how they can use it before they take it home. So it really is, I think it'll be a much more comfortable situation for people to be in than what Webb Valley is. It was all we had when we built it, and it's still all we have, so we have to get by, but it's not the best situation.
Well, and then the meeting rooms that are all going to be on the fourth floor, I think it's just my opinion, but some people can't get up to the fourth floor. And even in spite of the fact that there's an elevator.
There's meeting rooms spread throughout the building. They're small rooms. Those rooms that you're seeing on the fourth floor are rooms for large meetings. But there are other meeting rooms on every floor of the library.
So something to replace the boardroom, for
Yes.
example,
Yes.
would be on the first floor.
There are meeting rooms on every floor. And they're more on the interior of the building rather than the outside edges, so that when you're reading in the library, you can use the windows for light and have that light from the outside edges. The meeting rooms will be more towards the center. And we're hoping that they will be glass, so that they're easy, transparent, people can see in and see what's going on, and if that's the meeting that you're supposed to go to or whatever, they won't be hard walls.
Why wouldn't a person be able to get to a meeting room on the top floor on an elevator? Isn't that what you suggested?
He was just asking why
Lee,
someone couldn't get.
what if you don't particularly want to take an elevator? What if you have a slighter version of elevators? And then you have to deal with walking upstairs. And how many stairs per staircase between the first floor and the second, third, and fourth? Do you know how many stairs there are?
I haven't counted them. Have you?
18 feet
What
divided
was
by
it,
7
like
inches.
18 feet.
Probably about 30 steps.
What?
30?
30 between each floor?
And you have to have a landing every 7 steps or something like that? Yeah.
So there'll be like 3 landings?
There'll be
I mean,
one landing between each floor.
Hmm.
The idea is that we're providing a multitude of flexibilities. The classroom on the first floor can act as a boardroom, it could act as a meeting room, and that's right on the first floor in the marketplace. There's 2 elevators that will actually serve the adult floor that really houses most of the smaller meeting rooms. There's about 6 or 7 of them. And then the 4th floor is really where the larger meeting rooms are.
That would be where the films are shown.
Films, music events, weddings. I mean, that's going to be a much larger public space. And there'll be 3 rooms about this size up on the 4th floor,
So there's 30 steps between each floor.
roughly. It's good exercise. That's the bright side. Yeah.
I seem to recall there was some discussion of turning front of Main Street into 2-way streets. Do you know if that's going to happen?
Yeah,
And what impact it'll have on your design?
right now, we've visited with the city about that topic specifically. So right now there's parallel parking on both sides. We're not planning on looking at accommodating kind of angled in parking here at this point. We're already kind of really trying to balance a very tight budget. We see this as kind of outside the project scope. If the city wants to come in and dictate where that parking should occur, they should come to the project with maybe a little money. Right now, the city doesn't have the money to change the directional traffic on those streets, so we're not going to do anything that'll impede that. These 2 streets will remain the direction they are, so we know the bus drop-off is kind of critical. We want to make sure kids are dropped off on the curb, not out in the street. If the direction of travel changes here, bus drop-off could end up occurring right out in front as well, which would be great. So I think we're kind of set up for the best case. If the traffic does change, maybe the city would look at doing angled in parking here versus parallel. We could probably pick up 7 or 8 more spaces at the back. It's kind of an interesting discussion because, from the library's perspective, we want to continue to maintain free parking for all the patrons. We're increasing the parking level, and I think the city wants to be part of these discussions, and we need to kind of balance what their goals are, because I think once this becomes part of the CBD, these street edges will be metered, much like the downtown, so their parking district will end up growing. So if you're not parking on site, you'll be paying a ticket that the city will end up managing. But if you get a spot on site, you can come and go from the library and not have to pay. Yep.
Is there going to be on-street bike parking, or is it just going to be the bike parking on?
It's a good question. We're planning on providing, probably a good portion of racks right outside the front door. So there'll be on-street parking here. The rest of the 30 to 40 spaces will be underneath the building, out of the weather.
Okay, will the stuff on the street be covered?
This dashed line right along the corner here is kind of building overhang, so one's right up against the building would technically be covered. The challenge with that is, when there is a storm event, rain's not coming straight down, it's usually coming in sideways. So the covered aspects of bikes, I think, would be a little bit of a challenge.
I kind of have a follow-up to that. So I think it's really important to be promoting using sustainable transportation with 3 additional organizations moving in, and just knowing that we can't accommodate that many cars. So looking at the bike parking that is below, it looks like I think it's really important in order to encourage that, to have it be really welcoming and accessible.
Yeah.
And I guess as someone who bikes, I would just like to know, like, do you have plans on how people can get to those spots in the middle of a parking lot, you know, and feel comfortable doing that?
So we've actually talked pretty extensively as a team. This is kind of an island, and whether it remains one stall wide, you know, it's 9 feet wide, but what, you know, the idea is kind of, there's a collection point here, you know, whether you're coming across from the river and you have to meander to the center here, but our idea is to try to celebrate, you know, your access into the building. You're coming in under an upper level. What is this going to feel like, and how do we transition from pedestrian traffic across this parking lot to a pickup point here and into the building? So we do kind of recognize that procession and what that experience is going to be like. I mean, I think there's outdoor bike parking here, indoor bike parking there, and another 26 bikes back there. But
Okay.
I think it's, you know, at least from my point of view, those 30 bikes in the center there and those 24 bikes up front, that's prime real estate for bikers. So
So you'll be able to
There's-
get to those from outside, you won't have to go through the parking lot?
right.
Okay, I guess that's what I was.
So there's the, you know, like the bike repair station that's right outside now, that'll live outside the building, but it'll be covered. These bike spaces are outside the parking area, but they're covered. So we're trying to maintain a secure line, so at night, this parking garage isn't accessible. It's just closed, so we don't have people kind of congregating in here at night.
And then a quick follow-up is, we also know that a lot of people that come on bike come with their kids and trailers and things like that. So do you have plans to just make sure you're accommodating those? So that might be 30 bikes, but if you have a bike trailer, that might take up 2 or 3 of those spots. Maybe if there are some separate.
I think understanding, you know, this is still pretty early, but I think whether this is actually landscaping or it becomes kind of a larger bike parking area with more space for those types of needs, I mean, that's a great point.
maybe there's some specific striping in and around that bike parking area that is striped in a way that is kind of a placeholder for those trailers or something like that. Yeah.
And what about safety concerns as far as putting bicycles into a space where cars are going to be, my experience is sometimes drivers are busier looking for parking spaces than they are for cyclists, and you could potentially have some collisions.
My argument to that is, what are the safety concerns of putting bikes on the passenger side of vehicles on Higgins? That's a sidebar conversation, but
Okay.
I think that's very real. I think we need to kind of understand, you know, whether this is a, you know, kind of a raised area in the parking lot that's defined with different paving, and that becomes kind of like a traffic calming measure where you're going to be a little more aware of what's crossing there. But we understand that, you know, this is going to become a pretty prime entrance, you know, for a lot of people that are coming in from probably the riverside, or if they want to come up around the front of the building. We know that that's probably one of the primary entrances, and getting bikes and pedestrians back there is going to be pretty critical. Yeah, I mean, you can come up from here up these steps and come in through the cafe, or you can also, you know, come to this corner, come in the front entrance, or come in the lower level. Anything else before we?
Have you had any discussions with Mountain Line in regards to their plans?
Part of this DTR review has kind of all the city players in the room. Mountain Line hasn't attended the last meeting, I don't think, but we need to kind of circle back with them on what their plans are for increased bus routes. I think there's, like you said, I think just raising awareness of sustainable modes of transportation and getting to and from the library. I think one study showed that 50% of the people that actually use the library don't use cars. So that's library patrons. But I think with Spectrum now coming and the Children's Museum and MCAT, I mean, MCAT is kind of a little different animal, but the Children's Museum and Spectrum, you know, they're going to have a north side location. The location they just had was really busy with school kid drop off and, you know, parents dropping kids off with cars. So there will be an increase in parking for sure.
And one other question. So what is the current perception about homeless people in the library as it exists right now? Is that a problem?
I think, and Honor's probably going to chime in, I think there's a pretty big perception in Missoula that it's a problem. I think it's a problem all across the state. Honor, do you want to?
Sure. We used to have a lot of homeless people at the library on a daily basis until the Poverello Center built up, and we don't see those same people anymore. They attend the day programs at the pub and they don't come here. As in any city in any state right now, the population of homeless people is increasing, and they're not people who live here, but people who travel through. And of course, we do see them. What we're thankful for is we have the HOT team that comes from the Poverello Center, and so they come and help us work with that population. We also at times have to call the police and have them come and remove people from the library. But more than homeless people, it's mentally ill people. And a lot of them are veterans. It's very sad what the shape that our society is in right now, I think. So I can't really say that it's homeless people that cause us issues as much as just kind of transients that move through town in the spring and the summer. In the winter, we have very few issues. So I was visiting, we just came back from American Library Association and visiting with librarians across the country. We're pretty lucky with what we see compared to what they see in other cities across Montana even. So I think that I have to give the Poverello Center a lot of credit for what they do with the homeless outreach team, and that they're downtown walking around, trying to make connection with those people and trying to help them find services that they need to have so that they're not bothering other people.
Well, I guess if I were to make one suggestion, it would be that if other library experiences can inform us, and our own current experience can inform us when this is designed, maybe you won't have to trust luck in Missoula.
Yeah.
You can hopefully have fewer problems.
And we welcome all the suggestions that we can get from people. I mean,
I think,
if anybody has any suggestions, we'd love to hear them.
you know, our partner firm that we've worked with have done, you know, they've designed about, you know, over 200 libraries across the country in much bigger metropolitan areas than Missoula. And they've had exactly those questions. And it's not that you turn your head or try to, you know, sweep it under the rug. I mean, it is a problem across the nation. But these buildings are public buildings. You know, they're for everybody. And it's not like we're trying to create a place to preclude them. It's still a place that they can exist. But I think the type of architecture and the type of building that we're creating will raise a different awareness in somebody that maybe has a challenge, you know, mentally, or it'll convey a different way to act when you come into this building, because there'll be a lot of eyes on you. You know, we purposely have placed the children's floor up on second, not to separate them from the masses of people using the marketplace, but the library is going to have a team of people that greet people when they walk in, and that'll be kind of the first touch point, and it'll be either this person's safe, this person's not. So there will be a connectivity with the public here, probably more so than there is now, because with the partners, there'll be additional staff.
The other thing is that we're working with other agencies in town right now to be able to hire a social worker that will be at the library. And so whether it's probably going to be through a partnership with Aging Services or another agency in town, so that we'll have some services available for people that actually need them, rather than right now they have to go all over town and they can't find the services they need. So if we have a person here who can help them hook up with the services that they need and help them get appointments for those services, it certainly will help. And we do have agencies in town that we can work with and who we've had beginning conversations with. So we'll have kind of a kiosk where people can come in and get that kind of help. So I think that also will help with that type of situation.
Thank you.
My recollection is when we first put Wi-Fi in this building, that it could handle up to 52 laptops at a time. I assume if we're going to add maybe as many as 100, not maybe counting all the people that bring their own in, we're talking at least Cat 7 wiring and more routers and all that kind of stuff. Is that's part of your consultation and subbing?
Yep, we're partnered with Access Technologies here in town, and they've worked with most of the state universities. So the system that'll be going into this building will be extremely robust. I think we're talking about 2 strands of fiber, Cat 7 wiring throughout, so it'll accommodate anything we can throw at it, I would assume.
So since you have a tight budget, and I don't know where you think about, what you think about leaving out, but just personally, it'd be my opinion that I like the welcoming area for the bikes and things better than the green roof. It's Montana, and green is going to be not green a lot of time.
Yeah, and honestly, green roofs are really a challenge here.
Yeah.
I mean, they sound really good, but to make them successful, you've got to irrigate them continually.
Yeah.
And, you know, in an effort to be sustainable, it's not really a great practice. I think if we can have some small areas of green up on the roof, like small planters versus entire green roofs, it's a much better approach because we won't need as much water. But we're not, right now, we're kind of like looking at big picture, and, you know, I guess like kind of moving forward right now is making sure that we've met all the needs of what we've heard from the library, the partners, and that it all fits and works within the budget that we've been allowed to work with. So we're not saying the green roof's off the table, but it's probably the first thing that's going to be off the table. But we're going to be continually balancing that. You know, I think the worst thing would be at is, you know, we're millions over budget and we've got to look at reducing program. You know, hopefully we're tracking to meet all the needs of the community. You know, what this building's going to look like is still kind of up in the air. So we're trying to navigate that path pretty carefully and make sure what we're hearing and what everybody wants is what we're going to get.
I wasn't at the previous meeting, so this question is uninformed, but are we having a gray water system or solar panels or anything like that?
We're actually considering, like if we have a 4th floor roof deck, actually providing a structure that could support solar panels or PVs. So the PVs would actually provide as shading for the roof deck. Early on, when we were starting to establish some of our project goals, discussion of LEED and sustainability, it can grow out of control pretty quick, and we don't have an unlimited budget. This project is going to meet, you know, the 2030 challenge, which is the goals of our partner firm. So this building will actually perform 70% better than the current energy code. In the world of LEED, it's a very high-performing building. Are we going to have a rainwater collection system? Probably not.
And no gray water?
No. Yes.
Yeah, I encourage you to really look at the solar panels. I mean, that's a really good. The other question, just a simple one. The building's at an angle, which in construction, when you do angles, doesn't that increase cost?
You know, when Brandon was talking about the plans, I was going to bring it up, but I'm glad you noticed. That is very intentional. Early on in the design process or during the planning phase, we actually studied what shape would actually perform best based on sun angles, solar access, daylighting, and a square building doesn't perform as well. So we need to look at the energy efficiency of just a mass on site. And that shifted kind of parallelogram or trapezoid, whatever that shape is. That shape actually performs extremely well, and it performs much better than a simple square. So it is intentional.
It also
Thank
kind
you.
of follows the lines of the site, because the site isn't square, it's a little bit of a parallelogram. So
The building is more extreme than the site.
it is, exactly. Yep.
It might be a little premature to start on this conversation, but it's something that we've talked about in the past, recent past, of integrating the buildings that are going to be taken away in terms of the new.
I knew that you were here and this was going to come up. So I was going to jump in and mention it. And maybe tell everybody who you are. You're with the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yeah, I'm the historic preservation officer for the city.
So we were engaged with them probably 3 weeks or a month ago. And I know, with everything that's surrounded the Merc, it's not trickled onto this property, but it's obviously become a big concern with removing homes that have been around for a long time. So we did meet with the Preservation Commission, and we're talking about the homes that kind of live around the block, and obviously the most significant historical structure is the original schoolhouse that lives on this corner. Part of our strategy that we'll be getting into in this next phase, and that we're starting right now, is we're surveying the entire site and identifying all the corners of where each existing structure is. The library has hired an archaeologist to actually document everything that's in the house. Okay. Hey. So they're going to be documenting the process of dismantling the structures and documenting what was there. So we have that photo log. We'll have a survey of the entire block of where these buildings lived. And part of what we've thought initially is, the schoolhouse kind of occupies a small corner here, but how can we treat the exterior, whether it's paving materials and how it actually comes into the building. Early concept is, how do we pay homage to this structure that's lived there 110 years? And whether we do it with a change of floor pattern, a different change of material, but actually designate the corners of where that house is and have that more of an interpretation piece for people that come in and say, oh, this was Missoula's first schoolhouse, it lived here. But I think the really interesting story of that is, that may have been the original place of learning in Missoula, and now we have the public library that sits here, and we're building on the foundation of where it all started. So I think there's something really elegant that can be told there, and how we pay respect to that is probably going to live within that cafe in some form. So thanks for bringing that up.
I'm a member of the foundation, which is separate from the trustees here. We've had active discussions about a specific plaque on the outside of the building that would memorialize Emma Dickinson's history there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to this building that we haven't got into with the public that we're thinking about. And I know members of the foundation, the board, some of Spectrum's board, they come to us with so many amazing ideas, and this is a place about, childhood development, adult development, and how is this building going to teach and impact the public? But we're talking about having dashboards on the wall, whether we get PV panels, and we can actively see what a PV panel is offsetting our electrical use. We're going to heat and cool this building with groundwater, with the aquifers, and how we can track the usage and the flow of water and put it up on a digital screen so people get a sense of how this building actually lives and breathes is really exciting to us. So this building can become a tool for school kids and adults on, like, how can we heat and cool the building with groundwater? It makes no sense. If we didn't have a lab in this building, we wouldn't even run gas to it to heat it. So it's understanding those technologies and having people think differently about how this building can work is pretty exciting.
I think, we've all, I think, raised the bar pretty high for our design team and being guided by Rita and Lenore that we want this to be the best building in the state. I mean, there's going to be a lot of great programming and a lot of great moments in this design that I think we can all look forward to.
So I don't see any more hands going up. So, okay.
Do you have an estimate of how much capacity increase this will bring when it comes to storage areas for, shelves for books and other materials that would be, people complain about.
Yeah, no, we've planned for growth in the collection. That's part of the need for this library. And maybe Honor can speak a little bit about what the plans are for collection growth.
Each collection growth is at a different level, so everything will overall grow by at least 25 to 35% in hard materials, plus then more ebook. There's always more ebook usage and online resources also.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So our team is at the schematic design phase. We're actually going to be starting the design development phase, and that's kind of where the program is kind of fixed, and we'll know it's fixed if we're kind of within this budget. But the design development phase is where we start exploring what the exterior of the building looks like, what kind of materials are on the building, what type of materials are inside the building. It's a lot of the part of the fun where we actually get to pick lighting and pick ceilings and pick flooring and really start to put all the pieces together and understand kind of where the concept is going. So that's kind of where we're going. The biggest piece, and I think the challenge for the entire team is, we do have pretty lofty goals. I wouldn't say we're out of control as far as a budget standpoint. I think we're in really good shape. But the contractor right now is taking the drawings that we have, which is about 50 sheets of drawings that have kind of a foundation, all the floors, all the structures defined. We've described in narrative form kind of how we want to heat and cool it, what the lighting's going to be, some of the large generating pieces of equipment. So there's a lot of information that's going to be disseminated out to subcontractors as well as the general. So we'll be getting a fairly live snapshot of where we are from a budget, and that it's kind of critical before we get into the next phase to understand where we are. We know there's no more money. We have to kind of put in safety mechanisms in our budget to understand what the economy's doing. We're not going to be building this till next spring, and I think we all see what's going on in town, and it's a little scary to think that we'll be done with this design at the end of the year, and trying to track what materials are doing is a little tough. But that's why we have the contractor on board now, is so that we don't have like a surprise next spring what it's going to cost. So we're going to be kind of managing this cost along the way. Shortly, in the next week or two, we're going to be coming up with this kind of exterior concept. So at the next meeting in August, you're going to kind of see what this building is going to become, which is a real exciting part for the board and us. I think the biggest challenge was kind of getting the program right-sized and balanced with the budget.
Could be my eyes, but I think back on the earlier chart, it showed the August meeting was on the 14th. Is that a change to the 16th? I mean, in that graphic you had that kind of broke down all the phases way early.
16th.
Yeah. But could you look up at the top, it says.
Well, this accommodates like a week. There's 7 days
okay.
within
It
one
says
line.
14 August.
Oh, 14 to 17.
Yeah. Okay.
The 16th.
August 16th is the next.
August 16th, okay.
Why do you have apply/apply?
Okay, so the process that we like to go through and that we try to convey is, during a design project, there's always a stage of listening, and that's kind of what our first public meeting was. The collaboration phase, which is what this meeting was focused around, was actually trying to show how what we heard and what's on the plans is a form of collaboration. So we listened and we've kind of collaborated with the public and have placed these on the plans. The application piece that's coming in August would be how we've heard everything from you, even today's comments, and how we apply this into a final design. Well, that's all we had for today. Appreciate everybody sticking around, and you're probably anxious to get out of town for the long weekend, but we really appreciate your time.